first question is about what's the future for those on script. Quick comment I'll make is that I know people who are being encouraged so forcefully to make progress that they possibly don't feel they're in treatment anymore.
The script should be available for as long as people need them. That's the short answer, really. I've not read any evidence or spoke to anybody or seen any evidence at all that time limiting, curtailing, forcing is relevant to this discussion or is helpful. And if that's what the recovery message or the recovery drive has become in local areas, then that needs to be challenged.
Yeah. So service user involvement with people who are actually scripted or currently using drugs, everything is recovery based, which actually, you know, has been somewhat hijacked to mean abstinence based.
It's my experience as well that there are plenty of people who are being forced to detox, forced to reduce much quicker than they should be, and that is completely unacceptable and in my opinion in many occasions is unlawful. So any change in treatment, any detox, any reduction needs to be patient-led, it needs to be individualised, it isn't a one-size-fits-all approach. Recovery isn't just abstinence, it can extend to those people who are on long-term scripts and stabilised on those, and it should continue to be that. And I'd encourage anybody who is experiencing that, either individually or as a service, to come and see me or contact Release as a whole, because that's something that I would really welcome being able to challenge.
Forced recovery, forced treatment is a passage and a quick route to relapse. It's not going to work, and you know, so too many people are being forced into treatment on short-term treatment. I mean, I have to disagree that there's money behind recovery. There isn't money to provide recovery services. Very short-term answers, very short-term treatment, which is again a quick path to relapse.
Time-based treatment is right, and it's dangerous, and it causes people to die, and you can't get to recovery if you're dead.
Depends what evidence you're looking for, because a lot of it actually is passive-aggressive.
Yes.
The way that if you're made to feel guilty for staying on a methadone script, that is just as bad as being forced.
What I'd like to ask, some more practical, so we can talk about the whys and wherefores and what's wrong. What do we do about the future for people when we don't know what the local and regional systems are for challenging commissioners like we used to have? At least in the bad old days of DATS and the NTA, we actually had people who we could take our issues to, who would take them forward for us, and we could actually have effective user involvement that would change things on a practical and strategic level. Don't seem to be having that anymore. It's nice to have the talking therapies, but they don't change systems, so what's going to happen about that?
Those kinds of forced reductions or anything like that, Release do have a service there where they will advocate to your service provider about that, and you know, we'll write to them. They are successful in getting decisions changed round. Also in terms of people being excluded from services for ridiculous reasons, you know, or reduced for those reasons as well. So there is that service there. I accept that that's obviously on an individual level and it isn't on a larger scale, but obviously the more people that we can get doing that, then the organisations are going to have to listen.
If you look at things like social return on investment, you know, every pound invested in drug treatment, you get, I think it's £20 back. It's a seriously large sum. But like anything, you know, we're just looking at short-term measures, and no investment in our futures.
Trying to move people off their scripts when they want to be on it doesn't help, and I think trying to keep people on them when they don't want to be on them also is a problem. And I know accessing one of the examples is I know people who walked into a service, they go, I've had enough of drugs, I want to come off, put me into a rehab, and they say, let's stabilise you on methadone for 3 months first. And they say, if I could stabilise, I wouldn't bloody need it. You know, there are pros and cons to the argument. Move on to the next question. In my area, there's only one GP that will see patients with drug problems. This is disgraceful. Why is it treated differently from any other illness? Illness being an interesting choice of words.
These kind of areas, this is where service user involvement has such an impact. So if there is only one GP in your area, you know, it should be a group of users, then write out to your GP services, go and visit them, see, because actually you'll probably find there will be more GPs that want to work with drug users. They just don't know how to, they don't have the skill set, they haven't connected with anybody yet. And, you know, I think we've kind of moved away a bit from what service user involvement really is all about.
It's almost like going back to square one, where there are no drug services in certain particular areas that, well, no GPs that are responding to drug users because they're afraid to. So there's a sort of training issue around again as well, I guess. And also, I can remember back in the day, when there was one GP in Sheffield, for instance, that was dealing with drug users, and nobody else. And then it sort of built up from that, and service users got involved with it, and a whole bunch of services were created. I mean, this is prior to the NTA, prior to DAX and stuff like that. And it can happen, you can do it, we can do it.
I think this is a really important question, and I think it should bring us to making it happen, and what is going on in the country at the moment. We need to all join together and say, wherever we are on the spectrum, drug-free, using every day, we've got to fight for these things. If we lose them, and we're losing them daily, if we lose them, we're never going to get them back under this bloody government anyhow.
And there are over 8,300 deaths directly related to alcohol last year in the UK, and in fact, England or Wales. In terms of investment, there's £1,313 per person invested in drug services for individuals, and for an individual with an alcohol problem it's £136. So that gives you an indication of where we're at in terms of alcohol and drugs, but it's not enough either way.
Thanks. Pete.
Yeah, I think the most important thing to say is absolutely it should be distributed proportionately. I'm not arguing with that at all, but I think there's just an important bit of history just to kind of think about and understand, because there seems to have been this Newtonian law developing amongst the minds of some commissioners that to invest properly in alcohol, you disinvest from drugs. Now, the brief history is that treatment was patchy, inconsistent and dying and needed protection, wasn't living on the vine in 2000. The feeling was that alcohol could be trusted with the PCTs and they could thrive with the PCTs, so they didn't need that kind of special ring fencing and coming under the auspices of the NTA. It wasn't the NTA didn't want it, the NTA wasn't giving it. And so it was thought to be okay with the PCTs. Now clearly it didn't live and survive and thrive with the PCTs. But then does that now mean that you plunder drug treatment to invest in alcohol treatment when actually the funding was supposed to be coming from mainstream health in the first place? So in some cases it will be appropriate to disinvest from alcohol to rebalance it from the drugs budget into the alcohol budget. But I think we also need to be pushing back on the custodians of and the local areas that didn't invest in alcohol during that protected time for drugs.
I just want to say about money a minute, right? When I first started doing this work 25 years ago, I didn't have zilch. I was living on benefits and I was in my bedroom kicking ass as much as I could. And if I hadn't been invited, God knows where, to a conference in Wessex, and I spoke up as an active drug user, I would never have been given any support in the professional drug services